Do you remember doing that, going to that school
Yeah.
and being tested? What did you think about that day?
I was pretty scared because when I heard she tell you that I had dyslexia, I was like happy at first, but then like I didn't know what it meant, so I just got like scared.
Mm-hmm. So we had a conversation. Remember, Wyatt, when you first, I said, so there's this thing about your brain, and your brain, it kind of is harder for your brain to learn how to read than other people's brains. And I remember, I think we were driving in the car, and so I was looking at you in the rearview mirror with this, but his eyes just focused in on my eyes in the rearview mirror, and he said, "So it's easy for some people."
This is Megan, owner of Dyslexia on Demand.
And I'm Eryn, owner of Advocate to Educate.
And we are the Don't Call on Me podcast.
We are here to talk about dyslexia, to remove the stigma, to hear what families really go through, and to share their stories.
In both of our businesses and personal experiences on a daily basis, we listen to people telling their stories. Many of heartbreak, many of struggle, but most all have a silver lining. Even eventually.
It's all about the stories. The more we share, the more we realize we aren't alone and we are a community. No, a tribe standing together. Today's episode is sponsored by Advocate to Educate. We help parents navigate through the confusing maze of special education in public schools in California. We support families starting as early as preschool through 12th grade, creating individual education plans to support the specific needs of your unique and amazing child. To learn more, go to our website, advocate2educate.com.
Today's episode is sponsored by Dyslexia on Demand. Dyslexia on Demand uses only the highest trained dyslexia therapists, and it's all one-on-one and individualized to your child's needs. The best part is that it doesn't matter where you're located because it's all virtual. Visit us at dyslexiaondemand.com to learn more. Welcome back to the Don't Call on Me podcast, listeners. Today we are so excited to officially have the youngest person that we have ever interviewed here with his mom today to hear all about his story as someone with dyslexia. So welcome, Melissa and Wyatt.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Sure. So I'm Melissa. I am Wyatt's mom. I have one other son. I guess something to know, I am also a teacher. So that's probably important in this whole conversation.
Excellent. You want a chance to introduce yourself, Wyatt?
Yeah. Hi, my name's Wyatt. I'm in 3rd grade, and my favorite animals are horses and dogs.
Excellent. And I heard that you have 2 of them. That's awesome. So we're really excited to hear your story today. And we're going to start with just kind of telling us a little bit about your journey.
Wyatt was a student. He went to a preschool program. And then he went to a school, a private school for kindergarten, 1st grade, and 2nd grade. And now he's in 3rd grade and we're in a different school. But he was a great little kid. And obviously, I'm a teacher. So I taught kindergarten myself. I taught 1st grade. I taught 2nd grade, probably in kindergarten, that I started just, checking on things and making sure, I know what a reader should look like and sound like in 1st grade. And he learned all of his letters really easily. I have access to screeners. And so I would do, the phonological awareness screeners on him. And he was right where he was supposed to be. That wasn't a struggle. I was doing all the things, but he just wasn't really picking up reading, wasn't really taking off, wasn't really interested in it very much, wanted to be read too. 1st grade came, and again, we just weren't. If anything, as a teacher in 1st grade, there's just such a huge, steady amount of growth that happens in reading. It's like every single month, you just keep on improving. And that wasn't happening. And I kept asking his teachers, what do you think? And again, like, now going back on it, I'm so mad at myself because I didn't trust myself. And I also tried to separate, what I do for a living, and I'm a mom. Like, let the teachers teach, and you mom, like, that's your job in this, situation. And so I kept asking, and the teachers were like, he's fine. He's great. They have an assessment that they would do at his school. It was a national assessment, the MAPS test.
Mhm.
And so his data on MAPS was great, so they just, that's all they really had to go on. And so according to MAPS, his scores were great. He was great. But when it came, at home, when it was time to do homework, I sponsored remember this, Wyatt? I sponsored a summer reading initiative at the school. My company did. And it was, every child was supposed to set a summer reading goal. I didn't set the goal. You set your own goal. So it could be 10 books. It could be 4 books. It could be 1 book, whatever you want to set your goal. The kids set their reading goal. I think Wyatt heard what his friends' goals were. And so he set a goal that was like his friends' goals,
Like
which was pretty
100?
high. What was it,
Yeah.
Wyatt?
100 books.
It was $100 because
That's hefty.
it was awesome. And I was like, let's go. But then summer came, and this was the summer after first grade, before second grade. And every day I'd say, okay, if we're going to make our goal, we need to read. We have to read. We're not going to make our goal if we don't read. And Wyatt never wanted to read.
Yeah.
Well, Wyatt, can I just say, I was the same way, like exactly the same way. I loved the stories, like wanting to hear different stories. But when my mom would say, well, you have to practice. If you want to get better, you have to practice. I would say, I don't want to. And then she would say, but you're the one that said you wanted to read. And I said, I know, but I don't want it anymore. Was that what it was like?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I want to ask you what first grade was like, because your mom explained it one way. I could tell you what my first grade was like if you'd like to hear that, or you could just tell us what your first grade was like.
So my first grade was like everybody else left first grade reading chapter books. So I felt like I was different. Like, and I thought I was the only one that couldn't read.
Right? I know. I had the same feeling. Like, really, you look around and it seems like, remember when everybody had their books like open on their desks, and then I wasn't actually reading, but I had my book open to look like I was reading because that's what everybody else was doing. But I wasn't really reading, and I was just looking out at everyone going, what now? Yeah. Yeah, you that was similar for you too?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mhm.
Melissa, you bring up some really important things that I think that everyone listening to this needs to understand. First off, that there's that mama gut that you didn't follow. And I always say that is so, so important, because throw the screeners, the map scores, all that stuff out the window. You're the one who sees Wyatt in his pure form. And you also have so much more attention on him than his teachers do. And that's just a ratio issue. But not just that, you said he passed all the screeners that you did for him. And that happens. And so that's why I think that as great as these screeners are, we have to pay attention to the fact that there is a percentage of kids who are going to pass that screener. And part of it probably has a lot to do with what you do for a living, and the fact that you were most likely teaching those phonological awareness scores. And that is what that screener is showing. We can teach those skills, and not all kids with dyslexia have this really pronounced deficit in phonological awareness. So then they just slid through through the cracks right there. So I just wanted to bring that up before we got too far away from that.
Yeah. I mean, the screeners gave me it was like a balm. So like I was worried, and then okay, well,
Right.
I'll do this. It made me feel better. But seeing my son that summer crying rather than reading, or taking a consequence, like go to your room, or no video games, or whatever it was, taking a consequence instead of reading.
Yeah.
I just knew there's something else going on here. It shouldn't be like this. And so we started second grade, and I started in September. I had a meeting with the teacher, and I said, I think, I'm concerned here. I want you to watch, let's check back in a couple weeks. And so, again, knowing what I know, she was the first teacher that I asked, and I said, I want you to be honest with me. I see what you see. He's not, at the same level of his peers. He doesn't want to read. He's struggling when it's reading time. She was the first one to actually say that. And I was like, okay. Now, again, we were in a private school setting. There was no resource for us. So again, being as it is, I have connections. I know people, and I have a friend who's a diag, and I paid her to take a day off work and to test him. I took him up there to her. She tested him. She diagnosed. She said, I think we have a dyslexic. And I said, okay. And Wyatt, do you remember? Do you remember doing that, going to that school?
Yeah.
And being tested? What did you think about that day?
I was pretty scared because when I heard she tell you that I had dyslexia, I was like happy at first, but then like I didn't know what it meant, so I just got like scared.
Mm-hmm. So we had a conversation. Remember, Wyatt, when you first, I said, so there's this thing about your brain, and, your brain, it kind of is harder for your brain to learn how to read than other people's brains. And I remember, I think we were driving in the car. And so I was looking at you in the rearview mirror with this, but his eyes just focused in on my eyes in the rearview mirror. And he said, so it's easy for some people. And I said, yeah. And then you said, so it's easy for you, right? And I said, it's easy for me. I never had a hard time learning to read. And then you said, do you think it's easy and he asked about his brother. And I said, I don't know, because your brother's littler, but I think so. And you said, so it's not supposed to be this hard. And I said, it's not supposed to be this hard. And I know. And then he said, so what do we do? Remember this, Wyatt? You said, what do we do? And I said, we're going to get help. And then do you remember what you said?
We start tomorrow.
Look at you, superstar.
I know. What a great attitude. And did it feel in a way like this helpful thing to learn, where you said, wow, okay, so there's really nothing wrong with me? All those other kids who left first grade reading chapter books, now I just understand my brain learns differently, and I wasn't learning the way that my brain learns reading. Did it feel like a moment that was like a helpful thing to learn that information?
Not really, because after that, I felt like I was like the only one with it.
Yeah.
Yep. Wyatt, I need to promise you something right now, okay? Because you're 9, my son is 7. You both are dyslexic. I'm dyslexic. My dad's dyslexic. My aunt's dyslexic. There's a lot of people in my family that are dyslexic. First of all, if we want to have a party, we can have a party of all dyslexics. So you're invited. Plane ticket to LA, okay? If your mom will let you come. But number 2, here's the thing. I know a lot of parents will say, well, now we know what it is, so we can fix it. But when I was your age, I didn't like that answer, because I thought, wait, now I have to work harder than everybody else? And I felt like it was really unfair. I don't know. Did you feel like that at all?
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. So sometimes when I'm explaining to other parents what it's like, because I don't know, is your dad dyslexic?
No.
No.
But we think our grandpa might be.
Okay. Okay, cool. So we're finding the person in the family, right, that has it, because it's something that you get from somebody else in the family, right? So this is how I've described it. Do you like to swim?
Yes.
Okay. So when you started learning to swim, okay, imagine having to wear a backpack full of rocks Do you think you're going to be able to learn how to swim quickly?
No.
No, right? Okay. Now, if you were watching your brother, can we use your brother as an example? Okay. You're
Yes.
watching your brother swim, and the swim instructor said to your brother, okay, here is a backpack. It's full of rocks. Put it on your back. And you guys were far away. You were just seeing this from far away. And then the swim instructor said, okay, swim across the pool. Would you look at your mom and say, that's crazy?
Yes.
Totally crazy, right? Because you're like, wait, because swimming with a bag of rocks on our backs, that would be a little what?
Odd.
Odd. Yes, odd. And would it make it really unfair?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Who's going to be faster? You swimming without the backpack full of rocks, or your brother swimming wearing a backpack full of rocks?
Me swimming.
Of course, right? So it'd be easier for you to swim, right? Okay. So that's kind of how it is when we're looking at two readers, one reader with dyslexia and the other reader without dyslexia, right? One is going to get across the pool faster because they don't have that bag of rocks, right?
Yep.
And how we get rid of that bag of rocks, this is called an analogy. It's like a huge word that at 9, you're just take it in for a minute, but you don't have to memorize this word. But that's the way that I like to explain it to parents, because sometimes, and you're lucky, your mom really understands this whole world, but some moms, they don't know anything about this, or dads. And so we need to give them an understanding so that they're not hard on their child for being dyslexic, because it is pretty unfair when we have to work so hard and everybody else just has it easy in reading, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So in first grade, I'm just curious, like, did you feel like your teachers helped you at all in first grade?
No.
No. Okay. Basically, you were swimming in that pool with that bag of rocks on your back, and they were like, hi, Wyatt. And then, like, they didn't offer to help you. That's kind of weird, huh?
Mm-hmm.
And I think too, like Wyatt, you're such a smart kid, and you are very verbal. Like, so you can talk about all the things.
Mm-hmm.
You have great understanding of things. So I think in some ways, I don't think your teachers really knew how much you were struggling inside your head
Mm-hmm.
trying to read.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you didn't want anybody to know that you were having a hard time reading. You didn't tell anybody. This
Yeah.
is really hard for me, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
don't even think your teachers knew.
Because I was like embarrassed of it.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. You are just like everybody else with dyslexia. And I hope
Yeah.
you know that too. Okay.
I would pretend like I was looking for things in my backpack when the teacher was calling on people to read. I would like hide, and I would always be looking for something, because then I thought, well, if I'm busy, they won't ask me to read. What did you do? Did you try to not get called on?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's normal. Isn't that weird? It's like it's normal for me and you, because it is embarrassing when the adults don't even know what's going on. And I think that that's what's really hard for me as a mama, and I'm also a former teacher, because I want to take a microphone to the world and say, everybody that's dyslexic, you're not alone. It's so hard for me too. And I'm 42, and reading, it still takes me a very long time to read, but it's okay. I know I have some tricks, and I'll teach you those tricks if you ever want to learn them.
Well, Eryn,
Okay.
I loved when you shared, when we were just chatting before we started recording, and you shared with Wyatt that you're dyslexic. Remember his eyebrows,
Uh-huh.
right? Like, his eyebrows kind of went up. And
Yeah.
what was really interesting is once Wyatt had a word for it, it just made it tangible. So it wasn't this thing without a word. It's dyslexia. And then we started talking to other people about dyslexia. And
Yep.
what did we find out in jujitsu? And what did we find out in our preschool group of friends?
There are a few people that are in jiu-jitsu with dyslexia. Like one of my friends, G,
Uh-huh.
and another one of my friends' moms Well, that same friend's mom,
Mm-hmm.
M. And there were 2 or 3 friends from like pre-K that are dyslexic too, and one of their moms is dyslexic as well.
And did you know, Wyatt, that if you took everybody in your classroom and you counted off like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then if you started, the next person started at 1, every number 5 or one of the people in that 5 is also dyslexic. The thing is, they don't all know that they are dyslexic, and they just think the same way you used to, that, wow, reading's just really hard and I'm going to try to kind of not read, and asking themselves, like, is something wrong with me? But there's nothing wrong with those people at all. And a lot of them just don't know, the same way that you didn't realize before we had a name for it that you just felt like reading was hard, right? And so then you were probably saying, why am I different than everybody else in this classroom who's reading chapter books? And that's usually the most common response.
Wyatt, can I ask you, because I know we've talked about reading a lot. Reading, well, when I was at your age, reading, writing, and spelling were really hard for me. So when I would have to write in a journal at school, I would write the same sentence every day. We want to know my sentence? It was, it was good. That was my sentence. And I just wrote, it was good on every page of the journal. And I had to turn it in, and I would draw on the rest of the page. I'm not an artist, but I just drew flowers. So I'm wondering, if you think back to first grade, was it just reading that was hard for you? What other things were hard?
Spelling.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And it was super tricky because in first grade and second grade, there was no phonics being taught explicitly, systematically. So we were not getting phonics instruction, but in second grade started spelling tests. So we had no phonics instruction, but we had these spelling tests. And they were pretty terrible. Right, Wyatt?
Yep.
They made no sense. The words were not connected in any way, shape, or form. And we just had to come home and try to talk about the why. And it was in second grade that we got our dyslexia diagnosis. And so, we were in a private school setting. So there's really nothing that they do for you. So that's why we're in a new school now. We are now in a public school. So Wyatt gets to get his dyslexia services. I was paying for tutoring in the private school setting, and we were paying $120, and he would get 2 sessions a week. Now we're in public school. We don't pay for these. And Wyatt, how often do you go to dyslexia?
4 days a week.
Nice. I like that.
And he's making new friends. He's seeing their faces. He knows he's not the only one. So.
And there's a kid in my class that actually goes to the same teacher as me at the same time.
Oh, that's awesome. So you have like a little buddy. So that he's one of those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Right. And I bet you that there's another one in your class too. And we just don't know it yet. So, well, I'm so glad to hear that is really helping you and you feel like you're making progress. And if you were to, because I love, love, love Miss Eryn's analogy, her comparison of it being like you have a backpack of rocks. Do you feel, Wyatt, that you're starting to take those rocks out of your backpack one by one?
Yes.
Good.
And that night I have started to read a chapter book.
Which one? Which one did you start with?
Saving Vasha.
Oh, I see, I didn't read a lot of books when I was young, and so I'm learning all the time. Do you think I should have my 7-year-old read it?
Yeah.
Well, maybe when he's older, because it's definitely a harder book. It's probably written for 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders.
Okay.
And content too. But I think it was the cover of the book that got him, because it has a German Shepherd on it.
Oh,
the dog is Zasha, is a German Shepherd, but it's definitely heartwarming. And I try not to cry here, but
we welcome tears.
yeah, I've had some crying in this journey. I was not a perfect, mom in this journey. I got frustrated where he didn't want, it was homework. I don't know if I knew you were dyslexic or not. I might have known. And I was just frustrated. You didn't want to read. You weren't reading. It was so slow. And I remember, I think the book got thrown. I think a bad word came out of my mouth. I was like, I'm done. Right. And I've talked to a lot of friends and I've cried and I've just been like, I want to take this away. Like, I wish this was something I could take away from you, Wyatt, like that you didn't have to swim with a backpack full of rocks, or read, with this heavy backpack. But one of the friends that I cried to, she has 3 children who are dyslexic. And she said, I promise you, like, it's rough, but then it's not always rough. Like, you will get there. And I'm like, I don't believe you. And so it was a couple nights ago, maybe last week, Wyatt, and he did it all on his own. And I went to go turn off the lights and he's laying in his bed and he's reading this chapter book. And I said, do you want 10 minutes? I'm like, I won't turn the light off. And he said, yes. And I took a picture. Do you know I took a picture of you? I took a picture of him just reading this book. And I sent it to my friend and I said, you told me this day would get here. So I pray it continues. That you continue to want to do that because there's so much to offer in books. And so if we can just get it to where it's not so hard, like books are the coolest things when you start reading them.
Yeah.
And Wyatt, I will also say, from a dyslexic mama over here, if you decide in the future that you want to be a movie maker or you want to do things where not everything is about reading, because when you become an adult, you can get information all sorts of ways, like, because you're not going to school and following what they're telling you to do. So after you're done with school, if you want to learn about German Shepherds and that's what you're doing, let's say you're just studying it because you're interested, you could watch a movie on it as well. So I just want you to know that in the future, we have to learn to read just to get through the world and to spell. Do you want to drive when you're an adult?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in order to drive, you need to pass a driving test, and we have to read for that. And I think you have to write for that. That's why there's practical things. Or if you go to the grocery store because you want to make cookies and you have to make a shopping list, you're going to have to write things down. But I want you to know that the world is full of getting information in so many places. And also, once you get the basics down, things move a lot quicker.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to ask you, what are you learning with your dyslexia group?
Like vowel consonants.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We've started a little bit of cursive.
Awesome.
Ooh.
And
Are
we're
you learning like coding and like when a vowel is short or when it's long and words like digraphs?
Yeah, we just finished our testing a few like last week. And yeah.
That is.
What about syllable types? Have you done any with the different syllable types?
Yeah, we've done like A consonant E, O consonant E, E consonant E. Yeah.
Awesome.
All that kind of stuff.
That's
right?
excellent.
See, and do you know that the other kids, this is kind of funny, but the other kids, when they're in class, they don't even learn those things.
Nope.
Which is kind of like they need to know it also.
They do.
But you get to learn it. And so you're kind of learning things they're not even getting to learn, which is super cool.
Mm-hmm.
Wyatt, do you know that you're really a leader right now because you are on this podcast and you are sharing your voice and your experience as somebody who has dyslexia. And I love that you're doing that because there's so many kids who need to understand the feelings that you have and how things get better. And I just hope you know what an awesome thing you're doing right now. And so if somebody else that you were friends with in your class, remember I said that I bet you there's other ones, if they were to find out tomorrow that they have dyslexia too, what advice would you give them?
Don't worry, I'm dyslexic too. My dad's told me this. There's a lot of famous dyslexic people.
A lot.
A lot, a whole lot.
That did some really incredible things, not just famous, but they invented electricity, first of
yeah.
all.
Speaking of which, I'm thinking of being an inventor when I grow.
Yeah. And what do you know what you want to invent?
Maybe like toy cars.
Yes.
So cool.
Yes.
Probably not airplanes.
What do you know that you're really good at, Wyatt?
Art.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of art?
Like painting on canvases and
Really?
drawing. Yeah.
Everything that you're talking about, these things that you're like, I'm really good at, and I want to be an inventor, and I'm really good at art. These are all things that a lot of people with dyslexia also are really, really good at. And it's because you are dyslexic, because your brain, the right side of your brain that has a lot of those strength areas, tends to be stronger. And so there's also like strengths and awesome things that can come along with being dyslexic that other people don't have. So I think it's really cool. A lot of times these gifts that people with dyslexia have too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep. So Mom, what advice would you give other parents who are new to the journey? Would it be the same advice that that other mama gave you?
I think it is just to just knowledge. Like if you have knowledge is power, right? If you're thinking it's a possibility, follow that gut. And then if you find out that it is, it is true, it's going to be okay. I mean, that's the biggest, right? Like it's going to be okay. It does mean that they are dyslexic for life. It's not something that will go away. You can't take it away from them. You can't fix it. They are forever dyslexic, but they won't forever be struggling with it. They will learn. It will just to find your patience. The other thing that I think was immensely helpful for me in gaining perspective was I had an opportunity to do a dyslexic simulation.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. What did I do when I came home after my dyslexia simulation, Wyatt?
Gave me a big hug.
Yep.
I
Yes, she
gave him a
did.
big hug and I apologized and I just said, man, just the amount of resiliency that a child with dyslexia has on a daily basis, like putting their shoes on every morning and going to school, knowing they're going somewhere where it's going to be so hard every minute.
Mm-hmm.
And dyslexia is not just involved with reading. So it's
Right.
not just in that reading time that it's hard. It's hard when it's time for writing. It's hard when it's time for math. It's hard. Oh, it's just everything. And so just the amount of grit that I know dyslexics have, like when I was in the simulation, like I quit. I quit like 4, 5, 6 times. I mean, I was
Yep.
like, forget it. I started making jokes. I started making fun of myself. I started doing all kinds of things that were getting away from doing the work.
Yeah.
Because I knew, and they on purpose set you up like that. Every
Right.
task is so that you'll fail.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll have that feeling of failure. And I realized I don't like feeling that. And I don't pick myself back up from that. But Wyatt, you do every single minute, every single task, you approach the next task with like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to, and I would highly recommend that. If you're not dyslexic, you'll never know how it feels for your child.
Mm-hmm.
But as best you can, trying to imagine it and just have that empathy is my is my advice.
You said what I always say in reverse, and
Mm-hmm.
something that my father passed on to me, being a dyslexic psychologist and a school psych. And he would say to me, unless you have a child going through what your students are presenting with, never say you know what it's like, because it's a real disservice to that child and you will lose your credibility. And I always tell parents, and Wyatt, I think it's really, really cool and brave of your mom to learn so much so that she understands what you're going through. And we want parents who maybe the mom and dad aren't dyslexic, but there's like a grandparent that are, because your mom's probably with you or your dad's with you most of the day, right? Or you know what I mean? Like living in your house and they're doing homework with you and all of that. And it's tough. My mom didn't know what I was going through, but my dad did. And so my dad was able to kind of be my protector, I guess you could say, because he knew it wasn't about effort. And I think that is the misunderstanding, is that if our kids with dyslexia just tried harder. Let me ask you, Wyatt, are you trying hard enough?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Right? Have you been trying hard enough since first grade?
Yes.
Yeah. Could you even try harder if you tried to try harder?
I don't know.
I mean, that you're right. That's like a kind of weird question to ask, but like I don't think you could have, because your mom's shaking her head because she saw you all the days of when you were younger. I know you were trying as hard as you could. As parents, sometimes we need to learn from our kids, right? And the simulation is a great idea for families. Dyslexia on Demand offers it, twice a year,
Twice
once
a
a year,
year.
twice a
Twice a year.
year. And it needs to be done to step into their shoes, because
Mhm.
we have to change the understanding of who they are to their teachers as well. Teachers might not be able to step into the lives of our homes, but they can watch a dyslexia simulation, and
Yeah.
there's no excuse because they're recorded on YouTube. So whether you go to it or you watch it and pause it, you can do it in real time. So there is zero excuse for a teacher to not have empathy. And I will also say that I'm not shunning those teachers who don't have empathy, but I am offering the invitation to, right now, if you are listening, go and watch a dyslexia simulation, pause it, try it yourself, participate, and then sit back and think about how you're working with your students.
Yeah. So many teachers, it's okay, because in college, teachers are not trained on how to teach a child to read. They are not trained on dyslexia. There's all these things where we need to make so much growth in higher education. So it's not your fault that you didn't receive that before. But I think that there is no reason not to educate yourself on it to create that empathy, because every single person we have interviewed here will remember the name of that teacher who did not give them empathy, and they say it on this podcast. And I know that every teacher loves every child that they are involved with, and they never want to make a mistake not realizing it and be that person. So Dyslexia on Demand does have them twice a year. They are recorded on YouTube. You can watch them. That's definitely our highest played video out there. And I promise you, every single time we do it, we have parents crying. Or if you can't see they're crying, they email me after. It's a really pivotal experience. And it's definitely just a really important moment, I think, to gain some perspective.
Wyatt, do you think all your teachers should watch something where they can learn what it's like for you?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and why?
So they get what it's like to be dyslexic.
Mhm. Why do they need to understand that?
To help kids that have it, and then in the future, um, they can like if they get like say 50 more kids by in 10 years
Mhm.
with it, they can help all that
Mhm.
like that.
Mhm. Yeah. Maybe we should do one, me and you. You wanna do it with me? We can put on a simulation.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay. I'll lend y'all the stuff.
let's do it. I love it. I love it. And I also wanna know, Wyatt, Are any of your friends like that don't have dyslexia? Do they know you have dyslexia? Do you ever share with them? Have you
Mm,
ever told a friend that you're dyslexic?
not really, no.
Hmm.
I've told
Okay.
them that it's hard for me to read,
Uh-huh.
but not dyslexic.
Oh yeah. Can I tell
Exactly.
you something? My son, he did a presentation that I can send to your mom so you can see it. And it was like they have to do speeches in class and they can read it from a paper. So normally I write it for him so that he can make sure so he can read his handwriting. And then he reads it and he shared with his class that he was dyslexic and that so I was and that his grandpa was as well. And there were a lot of kids that said, "What's dyslexia?" And he said, "Well, learning to read, write, and spell is hard for me." And, you know, just like we want other adults, teachers, and parents to understand, other kids should understand too. Because, I don't know if you've ever been teased, but I was teased a couple times. Like maybe when I was reading out loud, I got teased. They were like, "Hurry up." And I was reading as fast as I could, but when I was young, they didn't know I was dyslexic, but I kind of wish I would have told them that, "Hey, I'm dyslexic. It's just going to take me a little bit more time." So some kids want to share it with their friends so that their friends understand. And other kids, you get to do whatever feels right for you. But as we want to make sure that there's no bullies out there. And when we help people understand, no, I'm not dumb. Hello, I'm going to invent amazing things in this life. But it takes me longer just for this. But you could be like, "But can you do a puzzle as fast as I can?" Right? Like there's other things that you can do faster than other people. That's why I was asking if you've ever shared with anybody else.
Are you embarrassed by your dyslexia at all? Is there anything that times when you're embarrassed? Because we don't want that for you.
Used to
Uh-huh.
be a little bit embarrassed.
Okay.
Mhm.
But that's not what stops you from telling people that you're dyslexic, right?
No.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, because there's nothing to be embarrassed about with
I
that.
just
Mhm.
say it's a little hard for me to read
Mhm.
because, like, if I say I'm dyslexic, they'll be like, "Oh, what's that?" And then, like, I just want to like shorten up the conversation.
I see. So like you're like, "I don't want to explain what this word means. I'll just keep it simple."
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense because kids might think, "Ooh, dyslexic? Am I going to get sick? Like, is it
Mm,
like the flu?"
sounds like it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because it's like such a big word and it's not a word that sounds like any other word really that a 9-year-old's going to be talking about. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. That makes sense. I just want to thank you, Wyatt, for being brave because I have a feeling after kids hear you, we're going to have a lot of other kids that want to come talk on this podcast that's your age because you've been the youngest one. And that's really special. So when we get more kids, maybe we can connect you guys and then you
Yes.
guys can talk to each other and talk about what you're all going to invent together. Yeah.
Okay. I'm
Okay.
up for it.
I love it.
Okay, love
I
it.
love
I love it.
it. And Melissa, I know you're an educator. I know that we'd love to just support you and what you do. If you want to share a little bit about what you do, so that the world can be aware and contact you, we'll definitely put your business info in our show notes and all that. So just share with our listeners what you have to offer.
Sure. So I'm actually a teacher's teacher. So I was a classroom teacher and now I own a company and I provide professional development for districts straight to teachers. So we're in the literacy world. So all things reading, writing. We work pre-K through 12th grade, but giving teachers what they need to know to be able to do their very best for students every day in the classroom.
Awesome.
Is it dyslexia focused?
No, it's a tier one for
Okay.
all students, but it's best practices that would be right in line for what our dyslexic students need as well.
Yeah. Yes. And if we
Amazing.
only did that for our K through 2 kids, man, what a world change we would have. So
Yep.
Hey, Wyatt, I want you to go run and give your mom like the biggest hug ever.
Right
Go.
now?
Right now.
sure.
3, 2, 1.
Go! Oh, look, he was frozen. Let's see. Let's see him body slam you. He better body slam you. I'm
Here he
looking for
is.
a body slam.
Oh,
There we go. Yay.
You have
She
a great, you have a great
I love
mama,
you.
and you're a great kiddo. And we've loved having you guys on today.
What do we say?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for spending time with us on Don't Call on Me. If today's stories touched you, please take a moment to follow us on social media and subscribe on YouTube. Extend the impact by sharing your story at don'tcallonme.com. Your experiences can foster understanding and strengthen our collective voice. Let's keep making a difference together. We look forward to having you back for the next episode.